Welcome to Sticky, Stories That Stick. Join me, Amelia Forzak, as I sit down with master storytellers to explore what makes some narratives unforgettable. Let's get started. Hi, I'm Amelia Forzak. On the Sticky podcast, I talk with leaders about the moments that changed everything for them and why those stories still matter. Whether you're speaking, writing, or just trying to connect, there's something here for you. Today, I have a very exciting guest with us, but first, I just have to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Pithy Wordsmithery, a boutique firm founded by yours truly. I'm a New York Times bestselling ghostwriter, and I love helping people write and publish their books. My team and I have helped many authors turn their stories into bestsellers and their brands into thought leadership platforms. Our readership is in the hundreds of thousands, so even if you haven't heard of us, there's a decent chance you've read something we've written. If you ever thought about writing a book, check us out online at pithywordsmithery.com. Today, I have Dr. Dayna Vidal with us. Dayna is a registered nurse, nursing leader, speaker, and coach with more than 15 years of experience guiding nurses at every stage of their careers. She's led hospital teams, built professional development programs, and mentored countless nurses through the challenges and burnout and career pivots. Her mission is to help nurses build confidence, clarity, and a career that fits like a favorite set of scrubs. Dayna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Amelia. I'm so excited to be here with you and just sharing whatever I can share that's going to help motivate anybody or just inform them as well. So I am very grateful for you to have invited me here to kind of amplify the voices of authors. So kudos to you as well.
Oh, thank you. You know, it's funny. When I was reading your bio, I was like, you know what's missing here is author, because your book is coming out in what, a week? Where it's end of October right now. So by the time you're listening to this, it'll be out.
Yeah, so it's mid-November-ish, around that time. So I mean it's barreling towards me like a freight train, I feel like, because it's just been such a labor of love. And it's like, I've got two children, so I'm not underestimating this when I say similar to when you are having a child and you've been nurturing and preparing, and then that moment starts to come and you're just like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. Did I do all the things that I needed to do? And I just wanted to have 10 fingers and 10 toes. So
It
um,
will. It will. I think that's a great analogy though, because I see how you never feel ready, but when it comes, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, got it.
yeah, and I felt myself sometimes through the process when I look back on it. I think that I'll call it stalling. I won't call it exactly what it is. It was kind of like, wait a minute, hold on, team. I need to think about this some more. Oh, I need to reread this part, or I know I'm supposed to get back to you. I don't think I did too bad on my timeline, but I could see myself as those dates were starting to come to fruition and see how the calendar, we're flipping days on the calendar here, and it's getting closer and closer. And yeah, there was a little bit of, because once you let it go, it's gone, right? So it's almost
Mhm.
like, you're releasing, letting the bird fly out of its nest, even though my book doesn't have wings. But it's very similar in that it's time to let it go. I can't keep nurturing it and looking at it and reading it. I mean, it was definitely a barrier to get over, to just say, okay, it's time to let it go, Dana.
You know what, though? I think you did a great job with that. And I've worked with hundreds of authors, and you're one of our star clients because you actually were doing your homework on time. So for those who don't know, we put authors on kind of like a schedule. So they'll have the book, and if they're writing it themselves, they have assignments, kind of like homework, where they're writing it chapter by chapter, and they have due dates. And dang it, you hit all your due dates. You did a great job.
Oh gosh. Okay. And you saw the end product, and then when we be on a call together, I'm smiling, but oh my goodness. The long nights and the early mornings. I think you might remember that there was a point in time where I could not figure out my rhythm. Am I better in the evening, at night when it's quiet? And I don't have to think about what's next for the rest of the day. Or is it in the mornings where it's also peaceful and quiet, but I'm also not fully awake. So I finally found my sweet spot, which depending on what I was writing, it varied. So um, a lot of times when I was writing some of the real nurses' stories, those were at night. Just because I had to, I don't know what it was about that. I think it was trying to be in tune with making sure that I was connecting the message that that particular nurse wanted to share and communicating it the way that I was hoping that could be grasped by the reader, that they could really get the message that I was trying to kind of take that story that's not my own story in some of these cases, um, and do it the justice that it needed to honor the work and the emotional toll and all of that 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 particular nurse was trying to convey. And so I found a lot of times that that piece was better in the in at night. At night.
Yeah. Timing definitely matters when you're writing and getting into your groove and finding the right space. And your book has a lot of the emotional stories, which I think is one reason why it's so good and people are going to love it, is you really get in there. And I mean, just the nature of it in nursing, there's a lot that happens. So I'm excited to hear some of the stories on this episode. But so the title here is Find Your Fit, a nurse's guide to choosing the right unit. And tell me about the book and what led you to write it.
So I knew for years that I wanted to write a book. And you hear people talk about it all the time. And I didn't have it in my head that it was necessarily going to happen because I know how often people say, "Oh, to write a book." But some of the experiences that I know that I had, and it took time. It took time to realize that my story was shared by many other nurses. Many of my experiences that I had, some of the heartbreak, some of the ups and downs, those joys as well. My background was a burn ICU nurse, and so a lot of emotion with a role like that. Nursing as a whole, we're seeing people usually at their most vulnerable times. But when you couple on top of that something tragic and truly life altering, like a burn injured patient goes through, um, also takes a true emotional toll on the caregivers. But nursing has a reputation for toughing it out, for pushing through. It's not normal to have to work for 12 hours in a row, which is what most hospital nurses do. That's not a normal work day for most people. I don't even think God created us to do that. Work 12 hours at a time. And most of that very physical and on your feet and with high stakes, right? So it's not just, and I'm not downplaying anybody's job at all because everyone has different roles and the things that suit them and the service that they do to mankind. But I can speak for nursing and say that this work is very emotional. And so, from the physical exhaustion, the emotional exhaustion, and the high stakes of taking care of people in the hospital setting, it can burn you out. And there are times where I would, chastise myself or be hard on myself. I got to be tougher. I got to be stronger. And when I got into nursing for a few more years and had the opportunity to share more experiences and be willing to be more vulnerable with my colleagues, they too had the same experiences. And so we were kind of depriving ourselves to some degree, and I think it still happens to this day, of sharing those experiences, sharing how human we are. It's wonderful sometimes to be called superheroes. That was a big thing during the time of COVID and the pandemic. And but we are humans. We're not robots. We're not superheroes. We are human beings with our own issues that we're dealing with that you really truly have to put aside in order to help patients get the best care that they can possibly get.
Mhm. I could never do your job. I could never be a nurse. I admire all of the people out there who do that work. It looks so hard. Even though the jobs are so different, they all look hard. So in working with you on this book, and I know we started with doing the outline and trying to figure out how to structure it and all that. It was really interesting for me to hear from you about how the different types of nursing sort of like draw different personality types
Right.
and how different the day to day actually is in the different departments, whether you're in the emergency department or you're in like surgery, which is very like scheduled and routine and you know what's going to happen. They attract different personalities. Tell us about that.
Yes, I have made it some sort of, I don't know if it was a side hobby, like, you go to the mall or go somewhere and you're sitting there at a restaurant or something, people watching. It was almost the same for me with nursing. I would love to try to guess what type of nurse someone was. If I didn't know them from the workplace at all, or I was at a conference and I was just meeting someone, and I always got a kick out of, I bet you this person is works in the ED. Because the different there are a lot of differences, and it's interesting because we do a one size fits all education with nursing. Every nurse goes through the exact same approved curriculum. Here in the United States, you don't have a specialty as you're going through school. Now, in other places, in other countries, like in the UK, they pick their specialty out of high school, and they're picking what specialty they want to go through throughout their matriculation through college. And so it's different here in the US. We all have the same exact curriculum. We all go through the same things. We have the exact same clinical rotations. It's part of the approved accreditation process for nursing programs. And so then you get a very small sampling of what it's like to work in a particular area when you're just a student and you're rotating through. It's nothing like experiencing day after day 12-hour shifts of being on a unit or in a particular hospital. You don't necessarily always get the right feel for it. And so, yes, different personalities I would find in different areas. A lot of the nurses in specific areas, and I'm not saying we're all built exactly the same, but there's some key characteristics that attract and also make someone successful in certain specialties. I was having an interesting conversation with Dr. Patricia Benner, who is the nurse theorist who came up with the nurse to expert, the novice to expert framework for how nurses matriculate through their nursing career, moving from being a novice nurse, brand new, just learning. You have a basic foundation all the way up to an expert. And it takes years to do that. Some move quicker than others. It's all just dependent sometimes on what environment you do get into. Are you in the environment where your personality is a good fit for that particular space? A lot of it has to do with what goals you're trying to get out of your nursing career. There's some people who say, all I want to do, I want to be a chief nursing officer one day. Well, there's ways, certain specialties that you'll want to go into that increase the chances of you becoming a chief nursing officer. The vast majority of chief nursing officers have a background of med surg and ICU. That's just kind of how it is. There's a lot of them in other spaces. So for all of y'all ED folks, all of y'all OR nurses who are CNOs, or a CNO, I'm not saying that they're not one or couldn't be one or are not a fantastic one. I'm going with the premise that there are certain, it's just the data that really speaks to where the vast majority of chief nursing officers come from. And that's just because you get a broad range of experiences that you can speak to. So, but yes, there are certain personalities, traits that tend to attract to certain areas. If you're a truly detailed person, you're going to love the ICU, right? We're down into the inner workings, the fine little small details that change, very small increments in medication that we're giving. They don't call them drips for nothing. We're giving medications that literally are dripping one at a time. So it's all a game of precision, very paying close attention to detail. And also, if you really want to really spend time, if your vision as a nurse is that you're going to be sitting at the bedside holding someone's hand, because that's what gets you going. That's what really are the things that are attractive to you about being a nurse, is being able to be there in those difficult moments. Oncology would probably be a better fit for you than the emergency department, where you're moving a lot faster and patients are coming in and out, and you may not have as much time to have that valuable connection with the patients every shift.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's hard to know what a job's going to be like until you're actually in that job. And so it seems like a lot of nurses, newer nurses, go into these units and then they have some understanding of what the job would be like, but they're surprised that it's lacking certain things that they wanted, or maybe they didn't realize they wanted those things until they experienced the job and they're like, wait a second, this isn't exactly what I thought. And then what happens?
Right. And so what you're describing is some of those factors. And this is research shows that when you're not in that right fit, you're more susceptible to burnout. And part of that is because you're also more susceptible to imposter syndrome. So you've told the whole world, I've told my parents, I've told all my friends, and all I did was talk all day long about how I was going to be an ICU nurse. And that's all I've ever said. That was my dream job. I get in it, and it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. And it's not taking advantage of the natural skills and talents that I have, the things that I really want to get out of my career. And so what's happening to a lot of newer nurses is they fake it till they make it. That's the phrase that they're using. It's like, well, I'll just keep going. This has got to turn around at some point in time. Um, and then they possibly get burned out. There's a reason why there's a 30%, 30 to 40, depending on what the data is that you pull, 30 to 40% turnover of every nurse after 2 years of being in nursing. That's 1/3 of that workforce that is leaving. And I'm not saying leave a hospital or leave a unit, they're leaving nursing altogether. And so this book was an effort to try to help nurses who are brand new, as well as nurses who are experienced, who are looking to go into another area, to give them some sort of a template, some sort of a guide and a reference point for maybe if I try to see what are my natural skills and talents objectively through a personality assessment to see what would be my best fit. Because I don't want to risk burnout. I don't want to risk wasting the time and energy and effort that I put into school, that I put into onboarding and orientation. And to that point, hospitals also, it is worth the investment of putting this at the front of when you are recruiting. When you are recruiting, do I want to do a personality test? Do I want to, when these nurses are techs or while they're in school, partner with academic institutions to see, help these nurses kind of figure out where they want to be and what it is that they want to get out of nursing and what their natural skills and talents are.
That makes so much sense, and they do that for so many other jobs. I remember doing that when I was younger, randomly interviewing for jobs where they'd send the questions to try to figure out what your personality profile is to see if you even match the job you're applying for.
Right.
So simple. So I think that's such a good idea.
Right. And the difference with nursing is that there I you see the personality test and they'll pop back and they'll say nurse. Right. You could take the Myers-Briggs inventory and it'll come back and say, oh, you'd make a great nurse. But then it gets down into, but which kind? You know,
Mhm.
'cause that's what's kind of overlooked. Because again, you go back to that generic education model. You go back to sometimes even in hospital staffing, it's I just need a nurse. But you need a nurse that's specific to that specialty. It improves not only the job satisfaction for the nurse, but the outcomes for the patient. If I'm if I'm if I'm using all my strengths and talents in a space, right? Of course, I may not have all the skills and talents, but let's say I am starting off with my best, putting my best foot forward because I'm going to tap into the things that I do naturally very well. I am going to be set up for much more success to one, develop those other skills that maybe I don't have readily available and I may need time to develop. But at least I'm spending most of my day in a space where I am tapping into the things that I do naturally. And so I'm going to be a more satisfied nurse. I'm going to be less burned out. I'm going to be able to stay in the profession longer and therefore be able to help more patients for a longer period of time and be able to give them probably a higher quality level of care.
Mhm. Such important work that you're doing. I've loved listening to all the stories along the way. I know that you interviewed a lot of people during this process because you've had your own path um, through the industry and you've known people who'd been in different departments, but you were kind of like filling some things in where you're like, oh, I want to talk to somebody in this department or this department. Tell me about a story you heard from someone that was just like, you're like, that's why I'm writing this book.
Yes. So one of my more recent positions, I was a vice president of nursing professional development. And the responsibility, the scope of that position, it was at a very large hospital that was academic based, strong partnerships with academic institutions. And there was a nurse who was a nurse, we call them a nurse extern, which is a nurse who's still a student. Well, they're not a nurse yet, I'm sorry. It's a nursing student who has not graduated and completed their their board certification yet. And this particular person was great. She was applying for a scholarship, but she was a little uncertain about making it through. She had a lot of doubt. So I was kind of mentoring her and helping her along the way, just giving advice, some tips, and some suggestions. And she was set 100%. She was an ED nurse. She wanted to work in the emergency department. It was the only place she ever dreamed of working, and she just knew. And she was very smart, very dedicated, and a hard worker. She, of course, graduated, passed NCLEX, which is that board certification from the very beginning. She had no troubles passing NCLEX and was rip roaring ready to go. I mean, she was set. And I just thought, great. I thought she was going to soar, and she was doing well. But fast forward 6 months later, after she had graduated, started as a nurse, had her dream job in the ED. And I share this story in my book as well, but that she looked totally different. I saw her 6 months later and ran into her. And I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm like looking kind of sideways. Like, I mean, she had dropped a good 15 pounds. She looked exhausted. She looked not just physically tired, but she looked drained, completely drained. And she looked sad. And I was like, hey, are you doing okay? How's everything going? And she just looked at me kind of frozen a little bit and she just started bawling. She was crying just tears coming down her face. And so we went off to the side. I was like, come on, let's go to my office and talk. So she shared with me that she was so afraid that she was going to disappoint her parents, that she was going to disappoint herself because she felt like nursing was not for her. And so I asked her, what does she mean? And she shared a story. You'll have to read the story in the book. You got to get the book to read the whole story. But it was a story of burnout, of frustration, of emotional exhaustion. And she was truly thinking, I'm going to finish off the residency. So at least I finish my nurse residency. And then I think I'm going to think of something else to do. And so we talked through it. And this was the first moment I had where I felt like, I don't think it's nursing, because I had known so many nurses. She was going to be a fabulous nurse, and I just knew it in my bones. And she said that she just didn't feel like she had what it took. So we sat and we talked. We went through a few things. I talked to her, and we came to the conclusion that maybe she just needed to try a new area, a new department, a new specialty. So I kind of halfway had not formalized this thought process about doing personality tests, but I asked her questions about herself. I asked her questions about what brings her joy, what she has always found to be her strong points. And a lot of it was about connecting with people. She liked to help people. She liked to feel like she was making a difference. And in a lot of areas, and I'll be honest with you, from my own experiences, some areas you could get into, and sometimes in that daily work, you sometimes don't feel like you're making a difference because you kind of maybe see the same thing over and over, or you couldn't help a particular patient in a situation. And so you feel this futility in your daily work, and it's hard work. So it's kind of like, why am I doing this? And so that leads to that emotional exhaustion, the burnout, and that she was getting ready to become one of those 30 to 40% nurses who was going to leave nursing altogether. And so after we worked through it all, we went through and we did some of the personality assessment, and just talking through what she wanted to get out of her career. We moved and changed her specialty to oncology. Totally different, right? Oncology is like night and day compared to the ED. It doesn't have as much of that fast pace, but it had the emotional connection that she was looking for. But she didn't know that. She never experienced an oncology unit at all throughout her clinical rotations in school. So unless you happen to land accidentally, like I did in your area, you're kind of left to chance. And I think nursing is too valuable. Patients deserve better. Hospitals deserve better. That we need to just put a little small investment of time at the upfront in order to maximize that job satisfaction and maximize clinical outcomes for patients.
That makes so much sense because the emergency room, if you're really trying to bond with patients, they're in and out, right?
It's really hard. I mean, and I'm not saying that there's no connections in the emergency department. There certainly is, but it's quicker. I mean, when my mother-in-law is a nurse, and when I first asked her, the department she worked in, and she said the ED. And you would think her reasoning totally made sense. She was one who connected with people very naturally. And when she felt things, she felt them deeply. And so she couldn't spend the one-on-one time as much. She wanted to have very brief interactions and be able to move people on, not because she didn't care, but because she cared so much, she needed to not be able to make those personal connections, which is a little different because she feels deeply. She's a huge empath. She wants to help everybody. That's my mother-in-law. But it was more of like I want to just help them in that moment, triage them, keep it moving.
Yeah. That
And so that's why it takes some effort and not a lot, because we do know ourselves very well. If we are very honest with ourselves, we could come with the good things, that here's what makes me tick, and here's the things that I think could be too much for me on a daily basis. So yes, very different.
It seems hard to know like the depth of how some of those things might impact you until you're feeling it too, because it's just, I mean, I can hardly imagine like going to work and seeing people like pass. Like that would be so hard. And so I would assume that like it does impact people in different ways, and that's a lot tied to burnout too. And there's, I'm sure, like no department where you can avoid that completely, but I can see how that'd be a huge thing where you're like, ugh,
Yeah, that was part of the time too that I was thinking about writing the book, because my own personal experience with a patient that was lost to us. She was I was like maybe my second year of nursing, and again, like I said, I was on the burn ICU. There was a patient, and it was a mom about the same age as me, and she had two kids, same age as mine, a boy and a girl, just like me. So I'm doing all of this personal connection, and it's hard to cut that off. You see someone in the bed in that situation, and you kind of put yourself in their shoes. That helps, because it helps us have that personal connection to know that this is a human being and we need to help them. But it also is not very protective of the nurse, because we have that emotional tie, and because we can see ourselves in that position. But this particular patient had sustained a burn injury. They were having a cookout in the backyard, and she turned the gas on, and when she went to go light the grill, it just exploded. And she sustained significant burns. Her whole family was there, so they saw everything. And she was rushed to our hospital to be taken care of in the burn ICU. And I had this patient earlier in her stay. Burn patients tend to have, especially significant burns, they have long length of stays in the hospital, because it just takes time to get the grafting, and having the skin be able to grow back takes some time. And so I had her a couple times, but I had her on her last day. It had been determined there was nothing else that we could do for her, unfortunately. And they had said at the beginning that they were going to be bringing her children up there for them to say goodbye. And it was a very difficult situation, because I didn't know how much The family knew about what was going on. I knew that her husband knew that it was time to take her off of the ventilator and start de-escalating her care, is how we call it, which is also always bothered me. But when the kids came up there, they started talking to her, and I was in the room hanging up a random antibiotic. And the little girl was telling her, "Mommy, you're going to be so proud of me when you come home. I'm going to keep my room clean." And her son was saying, "Mommy, I'm going to let you rest. You're not going to have to help me with my homework." And it was all I could do I was trying to hang that medication, Amelia, and my eyes were watering up. I couldn't even see what I was doing. And I was just like, oh my gosh, they don't know. The kids, the kids don't know that they're saying goodbye to her for the last time. And it was just so heartbreaking. And I was so upset with myself because I was getting so emotional about it. And I was like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing, Dan. You're supposed to be here helping them, helping this family get through this difficult situation. And you're up here bawling like you're not. And like, this is not your job. So having that connection between what is the job and this very personal situation, I I left the room. I went to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, tried to get it together. I'm literally looking myself in the bathroom, in the staff bathroom, in the mirror, and saying, "Get it together, girl! Like, get it together." I had a couple of moments like that through my career, but this one just stuck with me because I felt like it was a breaking point for me to some degree of the beginning of my burnout. And so I went back in the room. Um, did what I needed to do. I was very frustrated too because I'm sitting here hanging this antibiotic, and I'm like, why am I hanging this antibiotic? We've already said that there's nothing else we can do. So it's all of that emotion of, you're carrying out orders that you don't feel like they're for any purpose, and then you're all emotional. What am I doing here? What is my purpose? And I did get it together, and I think I did very well for that family eventually, but it took a lot. And I went home and hugged my babies a little tighter that day. But it's a difficult thing. And so if those are those kind of moments, no one prepared me for that. It's hard for anybody to get prepared for something like that. Um, but I didn't know that I would be dealing with those type of things. I did not know that we would have so many pediatric patients as well. I went to an adult hospital and managed to land in the one unit that had plenty of pediatric patients. I didn't do pediatrics because I knew I'd always look at some child and see my child in their face. So, I that those are the reasons why it's even that much more important for nurses to be prepared for the environment that they're going into. One, to be able to provide that care for the patient, and two, to make sure that they are okay, that their emotions are okay, that they're able to show up the next day. Because guess what? I walk out of that room and there's somebody hitting their call light saying that their food is cold.
Ugh.
I can't be upset with that person because their food is cold, but there's a whole other life and death situation happening in another room. I'd be on my call bell too, hitting it and saying, "Hey, my food is cold," or something else that in the total scheme of life is not as important as what was going on in that room, but was important to them. But me as the nurse taking care of these two different patients, I have to make that pivot. And that is exhausting. That can take an emotional toll on you. So knowing that you have to be prepared for those moments is a good thing to know to know a little bit more about it before you take the deep dive.
What you are describing sounds like the most difficult job in the world. Like, you're amazing for
Oh,
doing that work. Seriously, the vast majority of people could never do that because it is so, like, you're recounting this like decades later. Like, one thing that just happened on a normal day. It's like crazy. So like, supporting the people who do that work is so important because not getting burned out. Like, gosh, that just sounds like impossible in itself, you know?
Yeah, I think that what helps a lot of nurses is one saying, that this is my role. I signed up for this. I'm here to help this family and these patients. And I'll be honest, there's a benefit in being able to help people during some of their most difficult time. It's how I got into nursing in the first place. Was a wonderful nurse who was caring for my grandmother when she was sick, and I saw how impactful that nurse was. And that's why I said I want to be like that. That's what I want to do. And it helps you also have such an appreciation for life, for family, because you see, how delicate and how fleeting life can be, that you really put a lot of emphasis on not taking advantage or taking it for granted, because you can see some of the pain and suffering that happens, but it gives you a joy for life. I would say that is truly what nursing's done for me. So I'm as indebted to being a nurse as I am in terms of how it has helped me develop and grow as a human being.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, the perspective, like living in the moment and just not like falling asleep and waking up like 5 years later and being like, what am I doing in my career? It doesn't give you the opportunity to do that.
Right. It's given me the opportunity to write the book and sit here and talk to you. It's given me all of those, the connections with other nurses to be able to have them share their stories with me. I am still amazed at how open and honest and transparent some of these nurses were in sharing their stories. Really, all of them. Everyone who shared a story with me, whether their actual stories in the book or whether they gave me some other thoughts about nursing as a whole because of the experiences that they had, it's just been so valuable. And I'm still a bit overwhelmed by how that impact happened. Especially you get stories over time, with people that but to just sit and I'm interviewing and asking these questions, all these shared experiences that we have, but then also that they are so uniquely different. I found that so amazing.
Well, it sounds like your stories are really resonating with people just from what I've seen with your socials so far. Like your TikTok, I remember when you were first thinking about just starting that platform and talking about like, okay, how are you going to start talking about the book on social and talking about what you're doing? And I'll see your stuff pop up and it's so good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Listen. That was I. So I just recently came back from California. I promise you I'm going somewhere with this story. I recently came back from California and we went to Catalina Island. I had never been there before. And it's mountainous, it's like a canyon almost, with the water coming up straight up to that canyon bay area. Beautiful. There's a lot of bike riding and it's quite treacherous. And in one of my crazy moments, my husband and we did an e-bike ride. I so enjoyed it. And I got the bike again the next day. And so this time I was by myself. I was coasting along, having a great old time on all of the flat streets. And I said, well, I'm going to go up top. I'm going to go up high because I wanted to see the view coming down. Now, going up was not a problem for me. It was coming down. Amelia, I was terrified. I was riding that bike, and I'll probably end up doing a post on this one because I did get some pretty good footage. I was riding that bike, and as I was up there, I kept stopping in a golf cart because it's all golf carts there on Catalina. I'm letting the golf cart go by and come on because I'm going slow. But I started going downhill, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, why did I do this? Why? Why am I doing this? You didn't have to do this, Dayna. Why did you get the bike? There's nobody up here with you. And when I tell you that it's a cliff, it was a cliff. I was heading straight towards the cliff. It curves like this, but I was heading straight and it was going down. And there's a little tiny fence. It probably came up to my shin, this little two by four. And I'm looking at it. And as I'm coming down the hill, I see part of it is broken off, and it's going straight off the cliff goes you go straight off the cliff, and you would be, hilly, 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 and then you lay, and then the water is down there. It's high. There's no surviving that. And I'm looking at this gap in the fence, and I'm saying, I wonder if that's something somebody went through the fence right there. My point of this whole story is, as I made it through that part, I start coming down less steep. I'm a little closer to the water, and it's absolutely beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. And I said, I would not have had this experience of this view if I hadn't gone through that difficult time. And it was a lot of fear. And I'm that's probably the biggest takeaway for me from this entire book writing experience was getting over the fear of, will anybody like it? Getting over the fear of, I don't want to start it and be one of those people that's 10 years later still talking about the book I'm writing. So that fear of so-called failure. And will anybody want to hear what I have to say? And it's the same thing with the social media too. I was terrified, but you take the leap of faith, and even if you think you got the little fence there, right? And maybe someone, I don't know, somebody could have gone through wherever that little hole was, but just maybe I'm gonna learn from that experience of someone else. Maybe it's going to be okay. Keep your eyes open, take your time. It's okay. Golf cart was passing me. Somebody on another bike passed by me. And I started feeling the pressure of, let me catch up. I'm going too slow. And then I slowed down again, and I said, you know what? We might not even be going to the same place. Why am I getting pressured to do the same thing or go at the same pace as someone else? I don't even know where they're going. They might just be right there in the corner. I don't know what their past experiences are. Maybe this is some expert bike rider, and Dania's 52-year-old woman on a bike trying to go downhill in Catalina and doesn't know what she's doing. I can't ride a bike, Amelia. But I just said it was just such a beautiful experience. And when I got down to the bottom, I told my husband, he was like, how's your bike ride? I was like, it was great. I said the most exhilarating thing was getting through that, passing through that fear. I'm telling you, I was going to leave the bike up there and tell the guy at the bike place I left the bike up there. I was going to get off that bike, but just to conquer those fears, and then the beauty of what's on the other side of it once you make it through. It was a big lesson for me, and I thought about that as I was riding that bike in Catalina a couple of weeks ago.
What a great analogy. I feel like so many authors dread having to promote their book. They dread the marketing part of it because I think, yeah, going back to like imposter syndrome or worrying about what other people are doing or, will people like this? Doesn't matter. But it's kind of just like pushing through it, and it's a muscle that you build. It's a skill. It gets easier. It gets more comfortable. And then you realize, wait, I'm creating something really cool and people do like it. One time I saw on TikTok, you were pouring, I swear, I think you must have poured like $150 worth of Starbucks drinks into one container, and I could not look away. I was like, what's going on? Great content. I'm sure people are like stopping and just continuing to watch.
Oh, that was a mess. I was trying to remember all of the drinks names. I only get one thing from Starbucks is when I don't feel well, because I'm not a huge coffee drinker. I'll usually get when I'm not feeling well, and I get the herbal tea with the medicine ball one. I love that one, and I'll get like the chai latte. But I'm mixing all these drinks, and I'm like, oh my gosh! But it's the same analogy that there is a different type of beverage. If everybody was supposed to have the same thing, be the same thing, like the same thing, we'd probably just have black medium coffee at Starbucks, as opposed to all of these different vast array of different options. And I feel like nursing is very similar in that way, that you can find the thing that fits for you. But if you just put just a little bit of energy or time up front to do that, so that you are maximizing all the investment in time, it takes a lot. There's the ongoing education, all the training that happens. So not leaving that to chance, and really putting strategy around, how am I going to find the best fit for me?
Mm-hmm. Throughout this process, I think you've really found your voice, especially in the book, your writing voice. And I know that's something that is important to you for other people as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. And I didn't think I really had a voice. I mean, like, not in that way of telling stories, but I have always realized how much I do like telling stories. But most of the time it's verbal and it's something jokey or something like that. But I think my biggest struggle is trying to still keep my voice and find it on a more serious topic in some ways. There are some really light, fun moments in the book, and then there's some that are a little heavier, a little bit more emotional. And so I think that was my biggest struggle, is trying to find my voice, keep my voice in that space. And this book is not written. It was very important, and you know this, Amelia, that I did not want to um, write a book that was sounded too much like a textbook. I really wanted it to be very narrative. I wanted it to be like, like you and I are sitting here talking,
Mhm.
um, casual, and like we're just curled up with our favorite pair of Bombas socks, sitting on the sofa and exchanging stories. You're giving me advice, I'm giving you advice, learning from each other. And that's kind of the tone and feel I was going for in the book, because that's how I see myself. I don't know how the world sees me, but I like to think that I try to be bring things to a point where it's relatable. And I guess it's maybe the nurse educator in me, um, that wants it to be that way and not too formal. I just got my doctorate in 2023, and the process of writing a paper at the doctorate level made me say, I just want to be free to have a conversation with people. Although the book is chock full of research, real grounded research in personality assessments and the fit and burnout and emotional exhaustion, and fatigue. But I wanted to have that lighter take to it, so it's an easier read, but you get a lot out of it.
Tell us again the name of the book and where people can buy it.
The book is called Find Your Fit: A Nurse's Guide to Choosing the Right Unit, and you can get it on Amazon.
And where can people learn more about you and stay connected?
I am Dr. Day, the nurse coach, on several platforms, including YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn quite a bit. That's my professional space, but I do post videos there as well. And I also have a website. It's called the recoveringnursexecutive.com. And I have to share just a little bit about where that came from, because it's a big piece of this entire journey. I call myself the recovering nurse executive. And the reason that I do is because one of my last roles, I had some experiences that really helped forge me into finding my own voice, to really figuring out what I wanted to get out of my nursing career. And it was recovering. I had reached a level in at the a high level, in nursing leadership at the executive level, and gone from the bedside to the boardroom. And along that way, I feel like there were some things that got lost. I was comfortable with leaving the bedside and going into leadership because I still felt like I was helping to support the nurses that are on the front lines, taking care of patients. That was the only value I got out of being a nurse leader. The further up I moved with that, the further away I was from the bedside, and the more there were these competing priorities of the hospital, what the hospital system wanted compared to what nurses and my patients needed. And so it was traumatic. It was when I had that realization, when I had those experiences at the executive level, it was a little bit of PTSD. I cannot code it any differently. It was an emotionally damaging, I will say, temporarily. I'm good now, but at that moment in time, I had to find my way out of that. And so that's why I called myself the recovering nurse executive. And have titled my website that. So you can find out more information at the recoveringnurseexecutive.com.
And I know that you provide a lot of help to other people who are in the nursing field and looking for their right fit, whether it's coaching or that kind of thing. And so people can get more info on that on your website as well, right?
Yes, I have some free offers on there, just free things to help with interview preparation, resume writing, how to, the things to consider when you're thinking about making a pivot within nursing. And even if it's pivoting out of nursing, how to translate the skills and the talents and the experiences that you've gained. A lot of new grads, for instance, struggle with trying to communicate their clinical experiences and even non-clinical that they've done in other jobs and translate those things into how they would be a good fit for a hospital or a particular department. And so I have a lot of tips and suggestions and advice on that. And then I also do provide group coaching and some one-to-one coaching as well. I have several one-to-one coaching clients.
Amazing. It's been so great to see you make this journey, and I can't wait for your book to come out. I know that it's going to help so many people. So, Dana, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you for your support. You've been awesome to work with. I went into this thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not writing a thing. I'm going to lend my expertise, and Amelia's fantastic team is going to ghostwrite this book for me. And you gave me that confidence to say you can do this yourself. You know that, right? And I was like, really? And so I appreciate your expertise, your guidance in helping me um, navigate through this because this was completely foreign territory for me. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Aw, I loved working with you. Our team loved it. You're a great writer. You made the editing process very easy. And yeah, we're just really excited to have the book come out. So thank you so much. Again, I'm Amelia Forzak with Pithy Wordsmithery. And for everybody listening out there, know that you have a story worth telling. Thanks for listening to Sticky Stories That Stick. We'll see you again next time. Be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.